Since the dawn of human consciousness, a silent flame has been burning in the depths of the collective soul, a light that never goes out even when the world seems plunged into darkness. In all ancestral cultures, this sacred fire was personified, exalted, and encoded in the form of a universal symbol, the sun. More than just a physical star in the sky, the sun was seen as the watchful eye of the divine, the visible expression of the eternal presence, the bridge between what is earthly and what is eternal. But what few realize is that behind the reverence for the solar star hid a much deeper truth, a sacred enigma that has crossed the millennia kept under lock and key, the solar throne. Not a golden throne, located in heavenly palaces, but the invisible throne that resides in the center of the human soul, a direct connection between the individual spirit and the creative source. The people of Mesopotamia already spoke of the abode of the sun as the place where the gods made decisions that shaped the destiny of the world. For the Sumerians, the sun was Utu, judge of truth, the one who illuminated both the day and human hearts. The Egyptians in turn saw in Ra the supreme creator navigating the sky in his celestial boat, facing the forces of chaos to be reborn every day. And it was not for nothing that the pharaohs, considered living gods, aligned themselves with this solar energy to legitimize their reign. They were not only seeking political power, they desired the inner solar throne, the dominion over themselves, the integration with the divine essence. The solar throne, therefore, was not static symbolism, but a living process, an ascension that every initiate needed to tread with courage, renunciation, and vision. In ancient India, the Vedas proclaimed Surya as the soul of the world. But the true mystery was not its physical light, but rather the hidden radiation that penetrated the consciousness of the most advanced yogis. These sages understood that the external sun was merely a reflection of an even more powerful core, the spiritual sun. This inner sun, referred to in some traditions as the resplendent Atman, was the very throne where the Supreme Spirit sat in the heart of the awakened man. Glory was not a future promise, but a present state of consciousness, available to those who crossed through the shadows of ignorance. The solar throne, thus, became the ultimate symbol of spiritual achievement, the place where human identity dissolved into the unconditional light of being. The search for this throne also manifests itself in the mysteries of ancient Greece. Apollo, the solar god, was the patron of music, medicine, and prophecy, elements that indicate not only exterior illumination, but also inner harmony. The oracles of Delphi, under his tutelage, not only predicted events, but awakened the dormant consciousness of kings and seekers. The famous inscription, "Know thyself," was not moral advice, but an invitation to sit on the inner throne, to access the light that transforms ignorance into living wisdom. In imperial Rome, the deified emperors also tried to capture this solar authority, but many confused the symbol with the appearance, forgetting that the true throne is not conquered by earthly power, but by spiritual dominion. In even older traditions, such as those of the ancestral Americas, the sun was central to initiation and transcendence rituals. The Mayans saw in Kinich Ahau a solar deity linked to the rebirth of the soul, to the eternal cycle of inner light. The Incas, on the other hand, believed themselves to be children of the sun, not as a poetic metaphor, but as a spiritual reality that connected them to the cosmic source. Every temple erected, every line traced in the mountains, every stone aligned, was not just architecture. It was a mineral prayer to the heavenly throne. They knew that the sun was not worshipped, but listened to. And in the burning silence of their practices, they learned that true glory did not come from the outside, but was born when the inner self aligned with the cosmos. Throughout history, many wise people have preserved this mystery in silence, fearing that if it fell into the wrong hands, this power could be distorted. Medieval alchemists, for example, spoke of the Sol Philosophorum, the sun of the philosophers, as the highest stage of spiritual transmutation. For them, physical gold was not the goal. It was a metaphor for the conquest of the solar throne, the crystallization of divine light within the human being. Each symbol, each formula, each lit furnace represented the heart in the process of purification, the ego being burned to make way for the sun of light. It was not just occult science, but a map of the soul's ascent to the center where the king resides. Even in the Judeo-Christian scriptures, this throne is mentioned countless times, albeit disguised by layers of metaphors and dogmatic interpretations. In the book of Ezekiel, a startling vision describes a burning throne on wheels of fire, surrounded by living beings and intense lights, a mystical language that reveals the spiritual throne as the center of the universe and of being. In Revelation, John speaks of a throne where sits one whose eyes are like a flame of fire, and before which multitudes prostrate themselves. But what if this throne is not out there, but within? And what if this glory is the birth of full consciousness in the temple of our chest? Over time, however, this knowledge became fragmented, discredited, or turned into external worship. Reverence for the sun turned into idolatry, the inner glory was replaced by power structures, and the throne of the spirit was occupied by systems that prioritized control over the freedom of the soul. The mystery closed. The silence grew, but it never faded. It remained latent in dreams, in intuitions, in moments when the heart whispers truths that the mind cannot comprehend. The solar throne, even forgotten, never ceased to exist. It just waited for the moment when awakened souls would seek it again, not as mythology, but as an inner reality. And now, in this time of planetary transition, where old structures crumble and a new consciousness emerges, the mystery of the solar throne resurfaces, not as dogma, nor as magical salvation, but as the profound reminder of who we truly are. The Son of Man, mentioned in prophecies, is not an isolated hero descending from the clouds to correct the world. It is the living manifestation of this throne within every human being who awakens. It is the crowning of spirit over matter, of light over shadow, of truth over illusion. The prophecy is alive, and it begins when we look within and recognize that we are heirs to a glory much greater than we were led to believe. When we understand this, something changes forever. The veils fall, the external loses power, the search ends, and the solar throne reveals itself as the sacred space where God dwells in silence, waiting for our remembrance. As we sit on this throne, we do not become gods in the arrogant sense of the word, but we rediscover unity with everything that exists. We cease to be lost fragments and become living channels of the primordial light. There is no more separation, nor fear, nor desire. There is only presence, and it is from this presence that true glory is born, not the one that men applaud, but the one that the entire universe recognizes in silence. That's why this narrative needs to be told, because the world has forgotten, because the soul is thirsty, because the spirit is calling, and because the time has come. The prophecy of the solar throne is not a distant story, nor a mystical fantasy. It's an invitation, a silent call to those who feel there is something more, something beyond what the eyes can see and books can teach. This something is the sun within you, the throne that awaits, the glory that pulses with each breath. In the silence of the ancient scriptures, amid lines often overlooked or misunderstood, rests a series of revelations that have never been fully deciphered by most scholars and religious interpreters. These are codes that speak directly to the soul, not to logic, and that vibrate at a frequency capable of touching the dormant spiritual memory in humanity. Among these revelations, one figure stands out with disturbing clarity: the Son of Man. This expression, repeated with surgical precision throughout apocalyptic texts, prophetic books, and mystical gospels, points to something much deeper than an individual messianic figure. It evokes a universal archetype, the solar reflection of consciousness at its highest degree of manifestation. When we observe the recurrence of this title, especially in contexts of judgment, glory, ascension, and revelation, we realize that the Son of Man does not only represent a literal coming, but rather the emergence of a cosmic consciousness that operates within the human being itself. In the Old Testament, particularly in the book of Daniel, there is one of the most potent references to this figure. Behold, one like the Son of Man, coming with the clouds of heaven, approached the Ancient of Days. And dominion, glory, and a kingdom were given to him, so that all peoples might serve him. This vision does not merely describe a linear event, but a deep cosmic symbolism. The Ancient of Days represents the eternal, the absolute, and the Son of Man is the one who manifests, in form, the essence of the invisible. He is the link between transcendence and immanence, between the absolute spirit and human time. Upon receiving dominion, glory, and kingdom, he does not become a political king, but a ruler of light, a metaphor for the spirit that returns to the solar throne after its long journey in matter. The use of the phrase "with the clouds of heaven" points not to a spatial location, but to a vibratory dimension, indicating the arrival of a high consciousness coming from subtle planes. The Gospels of the New Testament revisit this figure intensely, especially in the sayings attributed to Jesus. On more than 80 occasions, he self-identifies as the Son of Man, suggesting an identity that goes beyond the historical figure. It is a title that connects his mission to the entirety of humanity. He does not present himself as an external savior, but as a mirror of the dormant potential in all of us. When he says that the Son of Man has nowhere to rest his head, he denounces the lack of acceptance of the higher light in the material world. When he states that the Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, he shows how this consciousness is constantly rejected and sacrificed by the collective ego. But when he proclaims that you will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, he describes the manifestation of this light within those who awaken, transcend the illusion, and align with their true self. In the apocryphal and Gnostic writings, where spiritual expression was more liberal, the image of the Son of Man gains even more symbolic layers. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus declares, "When you become two, you will become one, and when you make the inside like the outside, then you will enter the kingdom." This statement is a direct key to the mystery of the solar throne, the fusion of opposites, the unification of duality, the manifestation of inner unity. The kingdom to which he refers is not an external location, but a state of being, a condition of the soul. In this context, the Son of Man is the result of this unification. He emerges when the human being crosses the shadows of ignorance and becomes the living temple of the Spirit. He is not born from the outside in, but from the inside out, like the sun that rises in the heart of the seeker. In the Essene tradition, strongly linked to the origins of mystical Christianity, the Son of Man was understood as the Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, the divine model of the complete human being, before the fall into fragmentation. This figure was considered the archetype of restored humanity, the bridge between worlds, the reflection of the Creator in creation. For the Essenes, the spiritual mission consisted of reincarnating this model through the purification of the body, mind, and soul. Their daily rituals, strict diet, sunlight baths, and silent meditations were ways to tune in with this inner presence. They knew that the return of the Son of Man would not be an external spectacle, but a quiet transformation within those who were prepared to welcome the sunlight of truth. In the apocryphal Book of Enoch, one of the oldest sources of Jewish mystical tradition, we find even more detailed descriptions of this archetypal figure. Enoch describes the Son of Man seated on a throne of glory, surrounded by light, judged worthy by the Lord of Spirits, and seen as the one who reveals the hidden secrets of creation. Here, again, the throne is a symbol of spiritual sovereignty, and glory is the radiance of full consciousness. The figure described by Enoch is not a warrior or a ruler in the earthly sense, but a personification of wisdom, justice, and the light that dissolves humanity's inner darkness. It is the embodied solar presence, the return of the spirit to the center of being. The Apocalypse of John, in turn, further expands this concept. There, the Son of Man appears among the 7 candlesticks, with radiant garments and eyes like flames of fire. He holds 7 stars and speaks with a voice akin to the sound of many waters. Each of these symbols carries hidden layers of meaning. The candlesticks represent energy centers, the chakras of Eastern tradition. The stars are higher consciousness. The voice of the waters refers to the primordial vibration, the sound that created the universe. This is not a description of a geopolitical event, but of a mystical experience, a profound inner awakening that completely transforms the perception of reality. The Son of Man here is the solar consciousness manifesting itself in its entirety within an enlightened being. This pattern is not limited to Christianity. It reappears with different nuances in various spiritual traditions around the world. In Zoroastrianism, for example, we find Saoshyant, the final redeemer who will bring the supreme light to the world. In Buddhism, there is the concept of Maitreya, the future Buddha, who represents the collective awakening of compassion and wisdom. In each culture, this solar figure emerges as a symbol of the return to origin, the supreme spiritual realization, the reclaimed throne. It's not about copies or coincidences, but about a universal truth encoded in different ways. All these names point to the same reality, the glorification of the spirit through the awakened human being. Understanding the Son of Man as a symbol is to recognize that prophecy is not a future promise, but a mirror of the present. The anticipated return is, in fact, the recognition of what has always been present. The glory does not come from the outer clouds, but from the cloud of mystery that dissipates when the inner light shines intensely. The true coming is silent, hidden, unexpected. It happens when the soul decides to turn inward and face its own light. It is at this moment that the throne is restored, the inner temple is lit, and the Son of Man manifests in splendor. The challenge, therefore, is not to wait for an external savior, but to prepare the inner temple. It's about cultivating the discipline of listening, of truth, of humility, and of surrendering to the flow of higher consciousness. When we do this, something begins to move. A different glow takes over the gaze. A silent force begins to radiate from the chest. The mind quiets. Time slows down. And then, we realize that the prophecy is not a warning, but a summons. It does not want to scare us, but to remind us. It calls for the spirit that has forgotten itself, for the cosmic traveler who fell asleep in illusion. And when this call is heard, the return happens, not as an event, but as a rebirth. The presence of the Son of Man, therefore, does not belong to the past nor the future. It dwells in the eternal now. It is the reflection of the sun in our consciousness, the voice that echoes through the ages, the glory that awaits us when we remember who we truly are. The scriptures do not ask for blind worship, but for awakened perception. They are not walls, but mirrors. And when we see ourselves reflected in them, we understand that the solar throne has always been there, in the heart of the Word and in the word of the heart. It calls us, patiently, and when we respond, everything aligns. Heaven touches earth, spirit unites with form, light prevails, and the Son of Man rises within us. In the silent depths of ancient myths, there is a constancy that crosses continents and centuries. The presence of the sun is a symbol of redemption, awareness, glory, and rebirth. This recurrence is neither accidental nor merely poetic. It reveals an archetypal truth etched in the heart of existence, a primordial memory that each culture has translated according to its language, time, and spirituality. The sun has always been more than a sphere of light in the sky. It represented the eternal cycle of birth, death, and resurrection. It was the divine spark that never extinguished, even in the darkest moments of the human journey. This light was seen not only as an external force, but as the reflection of what exists in a latent state within each being, the inner sun. And it is precisely about this sacred and universal presence that the figure of the cosmic Christ casts its light as the highest manifestation of solar consciousness in the spiritual history of humanity. The Egyptians were masters at translating the unseen into images and rituals. At the core of their cosmology was Ra, the sun god, who navigated the sky in his golden boat, battling the serpent of darkness during the night to ensure rebirth at dawn. But this celestial battle was a reflection of the human being's inner journey. Ra represented the awakened consciousness, the spirit that, to shine fully, needed to traverse the realms of psychic darkness, conquer primal fears, and face inner chaos. The solar boat was the vehicle of the soul on its journey between worlds, and each victory against the serpent of the abyss was a victory of light over one's own unconscious mazes. He was not just a celestial god, he was the representation of the higher self in motion, of the inner sun awakening amidst darkness. This symbolism expanded with the figure of Horus, son of Isis and Osiris, who avenged his father's death by defeating Seth, the god of chaos. Horus was the solar redeemer, the hero who restored order and brought balance to the world. His eye, the Udyat, became a symbol of spiritual perception, of vision beyond the physical world, of the awakening of Christ consciousness. The Egyptians saw in Horus not just a solar god, but an archetype of ascension, a model of what a human being can become by conquering their inner throne. He was the Son of Man within the Egyptian pantheon, the one born from the sacred union between wisdom and sacrifice, between the intuitive feminine of Isis and the divine principle of Osiris. And his journey was also ours, to go through fragmentation, to cross through pain and return to the center, reigning over oneself with light and discernment. In ancient Iran, the Zoroastrian tradition presents us with another impressive solar figure, Mithra. Associated with the invincible sun, Mithra was the mediator between light and darkness, between heaven and earth, between the divine and the human. His initiatory rituals, practiced in underground temples, symbolized the death of the old self and the birth of the enlightened being. The neophyte went through internal and external trials, faced their own shadows, was symbolically buried to then resurface with the fire of the spirit lit in their heart. The ritual communion, with bread and drink, already existed in the cults of Mithra centuries before Jesus. This solar pattern, of sacrifice, purification, and rebirth, shows that solar consciousness does not belong to one religion, but is a universal spiritual map, accessible to all who dare to tread the inner path. In Hinduism, this inner light is described in the Vedas as the Purusha, the cosmic being, whose body is the universe itself. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals his supreme form to Arjuna, presenting himself as a sun 1,000 times brighter, incandescent with wisdom and power. The language is clear. The divine that manifests in human form is, in fact, the incarnate spiritual sun, and its mission is not to dominate, but to reveal. The cosmic Christ, the Son of Man, is this living revelation of the inner sun in full radiation. He is not limited to a historical figure or a specific culture. He is the manifestation of the supreme light in the form of compassion, wisdom, truth, and transcendence. He is the mirror of what we are when we abandon the veils of illusion and allow the eternal spark to take the center of our being. It is precisely this understanding that transforms the figure of Jesus into something much greater than a historical character. By identifying himself as the light of the world, by saying, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he was not proclaiming exclusivity, but revealing a condition of being, the union with the inner sun, with the singular source. He was the conscious reflection of the cosmic Christ, the incarnated sun that shines through love, surrender, healing, forgiveness, and truth. His miracles were not demonstrations of power, but natural expressions of light when it is no longer blocked by the ego. He walked on water because he was not subjected to the weight of matter. He healed with a glance because his frequency vibrated in absolute harmony with the essence of life. He transfigured on the mountain because his light had already overcome all internal shadows. He was the sun, not the one in the sky, but the one in the awakened heart. This sun, however, did not die on the cross. It was not buried in stone. It does not belong to a religion, nor is it the property of a tradition. It is alive, silently pulsating within every human being, waiting to be recognized. The cosmic Christ is the Son of Man who sleeps within each of us, waiting for us to traverse our internal nights, our betrayals, our judgments, our crosses, to then resurface with the light of the spiritual dawn. He is not in the past, nor in the future. He is in every moment we choose truth, in every silence where we listen to the soul, in every gesture where love prevails over fear. He is the fire that burns without consuming. He is the sun that never sets. When traditions speak of a second coming, of a glorious return, they do not refer to a spectacular appearance in the physical sky. They refer to the awakening of this inner sun within collective humanity. The era of the cosmic Christ will not be marked by monuments or celestial wars. It will be recognized in the sparkle of eyes, in the serenity of hearts, in the clarity of those who live in truth. The sun that rises in the east every morning will then be a reminder that light has prevailed, not because it destroyed the enemy, but because it dissolved the illusion. And on that day, every human being who has recognized their inner throne will be a son of man, a mirror of the eternal sun, a channel of the silent glory that transforms everything. The trajectory of the sun, which rises, reaches its zenith, and declines, is also the trajectory of the soul. And just as the sun reappears each morning, the soul can be reborn after each dark night. The cross and the dawn are part of the same cycle. Death and resurrection, loss and reunion are steps on the same ladder. And every time we recognize this, every time we see in others the same light that dwells within us, the cosmic Christ manifests, not with golden crowns, but with the silent glow of lived truth. He does not need to be announced, because he will be felt. He does not need to be defended, because he will be undeniable. His glory will be the silence that remains when all illusions are dissolved by light. For this reason, solar myths should not be read as stories of the past, but as scripts of the soul. They reveal, with poetry and depth, the journey we are all called to embark on. They point the way back to the inner sun, to the lost throne, to the forgotten glory. They say, without saying, "You too are light. You too can be reborn." And it is this reminder that changes everything. When we understand this, we no longer seek outside. We no longer kneel before idols. We no longer beg for salvation. Instead, we turn our gaze inward, ignite our light, and become what we came to be, the living manifestation of the sun that never sets. From the oldest roots of spirituality, the symbol of the throne has always been linked to a reality that transcends the literal understanding of earthly authority. In the collective imagination of civilizations, a throne was not just a seat of command, but a center of emanation of spiritual power, a point of connection between the visible and the invisible. Royalty, in this context, was not domination, but a sacred responsibility to manifest divine order on earth. Within the ancient mysteries, the throne represented the resting place of the awakened consciousness, the unchanging center from which the spirit governs matter. The glory associated with this throne was not the external shine that attracts crowds, but the inner glow that dissolves illusion. Thus, the true heavenly throne is not outside the human being, but within, waiting to be recognized and occupied by the redeemed consciousness. This is the solar throne, hidden in the heart, waiting for the ascension of the Son of Man, not as an external figure, but as a divine principle realized internally. In the sacred texts, this throne is described in a symbolic, almost dreamlike way, as if words cannot adequately explain what only direct experience can reveal. In the book of Ezekiel, there's an awe-inspiring vision, a human figure seated on a sapphire throne, enveloped in light, above wheels of fire filled with eyes. This image is a coded portrait of a multidimensional state of consciousness, where the awakened human being becomes the channel of the source itself. The throne is of sapphire, a symbol of the clarity of the spiritual mind. The wheels represent the eternal movement of creation. The eyes are the expanded perception, the vigilance of the spirit. And the seated figure is not an external god, but the reflection of the divine spark that resides at the center of our being. To sit on this throne means to recognize oneself as a child of light, as a conscious expression of the cosmic order. In the Kabbalistic tradition, the concept of the throne is also central, referred to as the Merkava, or divine chariot. It represents the vehicle of the soul's ascension. Those who master the elements of the ego and purify their subtle bodies become capable of mounting the chariot and accessing the divine throne. This is not just any astral journey, but a state of absolute integration. The glory, or kavod, which surrounds the throne, is described as an indescribable light, more real than any matter. It is at this point that the illusory self completely dissolves and the being returns to its original state. The throne, therefore, is the ultimate symbol of the reintegration of the human with the divine, the restoration of spiritual sovereignty lost since the fall into ignorance. The glory is not given by third parties, but regained through purification, silence, listening, and obedience to inner truth. In the New Testament, Jesus asserts that the Son of Man will sit on the throne of his glory, and that the righteous will sit on thrones with him. This promise does not point to a physical future where the chosen souls will occupy golden chairs in some distant heaven. It is about the revelation of an inner reality, the rise of consciousness to a state of spiritual mastery, where the being lives in unity with the source and radiates wisdom, compassion, and light. Each throne, in this sense, is unique. Each being possesses within itself the potential to assume this sacred place, but few have the courage to go through the process of disintegration of the false self that allows such ascension. Glory is the result of fidelity to the essence, persistence in the path, renunciation of illusions. It is not a reward, it is a consequence. The concept of glory has been distorted over the centuries. It has become synonymous with fame, wealth, or social validation. But spiritual glory does not shout, does not demand, does not impose. It is silent, dense, profound. It does not seek recognition, but only to exist. It is the vibrational state of those who have completely surrendered to the truth. It is the glow of the spirit at peace with its mission. It is the natural radiation of presence when the ego has been purified by the fire of love. This glory is what overflows from the throne when it is occupied not by the desire for power, but by the surrender to being. And it is this glory that transforms the world, not by force, but by the silent light that penetrates everything. The ancients knew this. That's why coronation rituals in the wisest civilizations were not just political ceremonies, but profound spiritual events. The throne was placed in the center of the temple, under the dome that represented the heavens, surrounded by astrological symbols and divine archetypes. The king, upon sitting, was instructed not to forget that his authority came from harmony with the cosmic order. He did not rule, he served. He did not impose, he reflected. The throne was a constant reminder that true glory does not come from personal will, but from surrender to the greater good. And those who violated this harmony, like so many tyrants did, soon saw their kingdoms crumble, for they had usurped the symbol without understanding its meaning. The spiritual science of the Essenes, the guardians of hidden knowledge in the times of Jesus, also conveyed this understanding. For them, the inner throne was the meeting point between worlds, the center of the living temple that is the human being. By purifying their thoughts, emotions, and body, the initiate prepared the inner sanctuary for the arrival of light. Meditation, fasting, silence, and contact with the elements of nature were not empty disciplines, but ways to align with the flow of the Spirit. When the temple was ready, the light descended. And when the light descended, the throne was occupied. And when the throne was occupied, the Son of Man awakened, bringing with him the glory that transfigures everything. The throne also appears in the mystical visions of various saints and prophets, such as Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Hildegard of Bingen, and Jacob Boehme. All report moments of ecstasy where they felt overwhelmed by a presence of light so intense that they could no longer distinguish between themselves and God. These accounts are not devotional fantasies, but testimonies of a reality that manifests when consciousness surpasses the barriers of the ego. In this state, the throne and glory are no longer concepts, but experiences. The Spirit reigns, and the human being, even without words, knows that they have found what they have always sought. The peace that depends on nothing, the light that needs no approval, the glory that needs no visibility. On the initiatory path, the throne is not reached in haste. It requires crossing deserts, facing dark nights, enduring profound silences, and watching all masks crumble. It demands dying to everything that is not essential. But at the end of this process, something absolutely new is born. The reintegrated human being, complete, unified, seated in their own center. There is no longer a division between heaven and earth, between spirit and matter, between God and man. There is only one throne, one glory, one light. And it's from this point that the new humanity will emerge, not as a collective dominated by ideologies, but as a brotherhood of awakened beings who recognize within themselves the eternal sun and live from it. The throne and glory are the destiny of all, but they only reveal themselves to those who do not seek rewards. They manifest when the seeker stops running and decides to just be. They arise when the mind quiets and the heart opens. They shine when truth becomes more important than comfort and love stronger than fear. At that moment, the temple lights up. The throne appears. The glory pours out. And the Son of Man smiles, because at last he has been recognized. There is a point at which prophecies cease to be warnings for the future and become mirrors of the present. A quiet moment when sacred symbols reveal themselves not as distant events, but as encodings of the human experience on its journey back to the origin. It is precisely on this threshold that the true understanding of the Son of Man is found, not as a mythical entity that will one day restore order, but as the archetype of a new species of human in gestation. This new humanity will not be marked by technological advances nor by political achievements, but by a silent leap in consciousness, a new way of existing where the spirit finally occupies the center of the experience. The Son of Man in this context is the seed of the divine blossoming within the human. It is the soul transmuted into light. It is the awakening of a potential that has always been present, but that now, in the face of the collapse of the old order, begins to emerge with strength and clarity. The alchemy of consciousness is the silent process through which this transfiguration occurs. It is not an instant miracle, but a hard, deep, often painful path that requires the burning away of all that is illusory. The raw matter of personality, with its fears, conditionings, and attachments, is thrown into the fire of conscious attention, and over time begins to transform. The lead of the ego, resistant and heavy, gives way to the gold of the spirit, light and luminous. This ancient metaphor, repeated by medieval alchemists and spiritual masters of all traditions, accurately describes the rebirth of the Son of Man within the being. The glory that so many scriptures promise is not an external reward, but the natural glow of one who has traversed the darkness and emerged on the other side with a heart ablaze with truth. The new humanity will be formed by those who, in silence, have already begun this internal process. Ordinary people in the eyes of the world, but extraordinary in their surrender to presence. Men and women who do not seek power but coherence, who do not wish to control but to understand, who are not in a hurry but know how to listen. They will be the first to embody this new frequency, to become the living expression of the Son of Man in his redeemed glory. They will not be recognized by titles, clothes, or external signs, but by their unshakable serenity, by their effortless compassion, by their clarity as sharp as the sunlight. Wherever they are, there will be healing. Wherever they speak, there will be clarity. Wherever they walk, the earth will feel the presence of something new, the awakened consciousness, the reintegrated soul, the solar throne manifested in everyday life. It is crucial to understand that humanity, as we know it, is currently undergoing a rite of passage. External structures are crumbling because the collective consciousness is being called to change its frequency. The old world, based on fear, scarcity, and separation, cannot sustain the light that is arriving. The darkness we see in the world is not a sign of defeat, but of purification. It is the final resistance of the old ways against the emergence of something entirely new. The Son of Man arises in this context as the archetype of regeneration, as the silent presence of the one who, having passed through the fire, no longer fears death. He is the bridge between pain and transcendence, between collapse and reintegration, between the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new reality. This new reality will not be built by ideologies, but by vibration. It will not be imposed by decrees, but by resonance. It will emerge slowly, like the dawn breaking the night, through the presence of those who have become living temples of light. The Son of Man is the model, the archetypal standard of this new frequency. He is the language of the spirit becoming flesh, the cosmic light taking human form to express the harmony, peace, and beauty of a world reconciled with its essence. In each culture, this figure has been given a name, an image, a story. But his truth is universal. He represents the culmination of the spiritual individuation process, the point where the human being stops seeking outside and begins to radiate from within. In Eastern traditions, this transformation is described as the realization of the bodhisattva, one who achieves enlightenment but chooses to remain in the world to serve the awakening of all beings. In Sufism, it is the Insan Kamil, the complete man, who has become a perfect mirror of the divine. In Gnostic teachings, it is the Anthropos, the original image of the redeemed human, freed from illusion and reintegrated into the source. In all these expressions, we see the same pattern, a transfiguration of consciousness that is not individualistic, but overflowing. The true Son of Man does not seek to save himself alone. He becomes a channel for the light to flow to the entire world. His glory is silent, but irresistible. His presence is firm, but compassionate. He does not proclaim himself, but transforms simply by being. This process of inner alchemy is both collective and individual at the same time. Every human being carries within themselves the possibility of becoming this new human, this point of union between heaven and earth, between matter and spirit. But for this, a radical act of courage is necessary, saying yes to the purifying fire, yes to the truth that unmasks, yes to the death of the false self. It is necessary to renounce the identity built on pain, social masks, inherited fears, and allow the mystery to take command. This is not a comfortable or fast path. It's a crossing, a slow dissolution of the old until the new can emerge. But when this happens, when the being aligns with its essence, something absolutely unbreakable is born. A peace that no circumstance can erase, a light that no darkness can contain. The Son of Man, then, is not a promise, but an urgency. He is knocking on the door of the human soul, asking for passage, calling for the reintroduction of the forgotten truth. He does not come from the clouds, but from the depths of consciousness. He does not descend from heaven, but rises from the heart. He does not demand worship, but presence. He does not impose dogmas, but inspires the transcendence of forms. And that's why his birth will not be televised, nor announced with trumpets. He will arise where there is silence, where surrender is genuine, where the heart is clean enough to recognize that there was never any separation. Wherever this happens, the Son of Man will rise, and with him, the new humanity. It is necessary to understand that the ancient world, with all its systems and beliefs, has already played its role. It was the necessary womb to gestate the human soul. But now the time for birth has come. And like every birth, this one will also be accompanied by pains, uncertainties, and ruptures. But on the other side of the crossing, something absolutely new awaits to emerge. A human being who lives from the essence, who no longer fears the light nor runs from the shadow, who no longer needs external validation to know who they are. This being is the Son of Man, and he already lives among us, not as one, but as many, awakening in silence, shining without fanfare, transforming the world without needing to fight it. The alchemy of consciousness, therefore, is not an esoteric luxury, but an evolutionary necessity. Either we go through this process, or we remain trapped in the cyclical repetition of pain. Either we let the inner sun burn us until only gold remains, or we continue to blame the world for our darkness. The call has been made. The light has already begun to touch hearts, and now it is up to each one to decide, to continue as raw stone or to allow oneself to melt in the fire and be reborn as the sun. Glory will not be given, it will be won by surrender. The throne will not be offered, it will be occupied by whoever becomes worthy. The Son of Man will not come from the outside, he will be born from within, and when that happens, everything will change. There is an ancient wisdom hidden in the cycles of nature that reveals the silent path of the soul on its journey towards enlightenment. Since the dawn of time, the great initiates have observed the course of the sun as a living mirror of the inner evolution of the human being. The constant movement of the Sun King, its rise, zenith, decline, and rebirth, was understood not only as an astronomical phenomenon, but as a cosmic roadmap of the soul in the process of ascension. Each phase of the solar cycle corresponds to a stage of consciousness, and it is in this secret rhythm that the journey of the Son of Man is outlined, not as a mystical metaphor, but as a dynamic spiritual reality that pulses within each awakened being. The external sun becomes a reflection of the inner sun, and the journey through the seasons transforms into a map of spiritual transmutation. In the sunrise lies the beginning of the journey, the awakening of the dormant consciousness. It is the dawn of the soul, the instant when light first touches the darkness of ignorance. This moment is often quiet, almost imperceptible, but it marks the start of the great crossing. The soul, which once wandered in the shadows of the ego, begins to feel the call of origin. Restlessness arises, the longing for something more, for a greater meaning. It is the beginning of the spiritual dawn, when the human being realizes that they can no longer be satisfied with the superficial world. The inner sun is still fragile, shy, but it already breaks the veil of darkness. The solar journey of the soul begins with the impulse of awakening, the whisper of the eternal calling home. The Son of Man begins to move, still invisible, but already present, like a sacred fire that slowly gains strength. The equinox of spiritual spring marks the second phase. Here, light and shadow are in balance. It's the moment of internal recognition, when the soul begins to understand that it is not the darkness, but also not yet the full light. The old structures begin to crumble. There is questioning, there is deconstruction. What once made sense no longer resonates. The masks begin to fall. There is pain, yes, but also relief. The being begins to empty itself, preparing space for something new. This phase requires courage, as the ego resists. It tries to restore the old comfort, tries to delay the inevitable. But those who have tasted the light can no longer return to the darkness without discomfort. The soul then throws itself into the process of truth, even without guarantees. Duality begins to be understood not as an enemy, but as part of the process of integration. It is at this point that the Son of Man begins to rise internally, still in silence, but with firmness. The inner summer solstice represents the culmination of light, the apex of consciousness, the spiritual zenith. Here, the soul, after facing its shadows, begins to fully inhabit presence. It's the state of clarity, of expansion, of full lucidity. The being discovers that it is no longer a hostage of time, nor of emotions, nor of mental illusions. There is lightness, not by escape, but by transcendence. The inner sun shines intensely, warming everything around with wisdom and compassion. The Son of Man manifests in his glory, not as a spectacle, but as a transformative presence. He doesn't speak about the truth, he is the truth. At this stage there is power, but it's a power that doesn't impose, it just flows. There is authority, but it doesn't demand obedience, it just awakens trust. The throne is occupied, the light reigns, and the soul lives in communion with the eternal. But like every solar cycle, there is also a decline. The spiritual autumn is approaching, bringing the phase of detachment, surrender, maturity. It's not about falling, but about deepening. The being learns to let go, to release what is no longer useful, even what seemed spiritual. There is a subtle stripping away. The soul realizes that it doesn't need to prove anything, that it is already complete in itself. The Son of Man, now in his most mature phase, withdraws from the external stage and plunges into inner silence. His glory becomes even more radiant, because it is free of any need for recognition. He reigns in peace, in stillness, in contemplation. Here, the being understands that the true light does not shout, it just is. And this perception marks the beginning of a new depth, the sacred night. The spiritual winter solstice represents the dark night of the soul, an inevitable sacred stage, often misunderstood. It is the moment when everything seems to cease, where presence disappears, where silence becomes absolute. Many confuse this phase with regression, but it is, in fact, the gestation of the new. The Son of Man, hidden in the womb of the night, prepares for his rebirth. It is here that the soul is invited to trust fully, even without signs, even without guarantees. It is the deepest point of the journey, where all external support vanishes and the being is confronted with its essential nakedness. Those who endure this night without fleeing, without giving up, discover a new kind of light, not anymore the light of understanding, but the light of being. Not anymore the glory that shines, but the glory that is pure presence, beyond any perception. As one journeys through this night, the soul is reborn. and the cycle begins again, but never at the same point. The soul's solar journey is spiral. With each turn, consciousness expands. The Son of Man re-emerges not as before, but on a new level, with a new vibration, with a new level of silence and power. He continues to shine, not because he wants to, but because he is. His existence becomes an offering. His presence becomes a blessing. His path becomes light for others. He doesn't need to teach with words. His life is the lesson. He doesn't need to convince. His vibration is the call. He doesn't need to justify himself. His coherence is enough. And so the inner sun continues its course, eternal, serene, unshakable. Each of us is embedded in this cycle, not as spectators, but as protagonists. At each stage of life, we can ask ourselves, in what season of the soul am I? Am I awakening? Am I deconstructing? Am I shining? Am I retreating? Am I going through the dark night? This perception gives us back our power. It reminds us that everything is a part, that there is no mistake, that there is no loss. The Son of Man is in all phases, at all times. His glory is not only at the zenith, but also in the buried seed, in the profound silence, in the sincere tear, in the small gesture. The solar journey of the soul is sacred because it is real, because it is accessible, because it is ours. Those who understand this cosmic dance no longer resist the phases of life. They flow with them. They know that each season brings a gift, a lesson, a key. They know there is no eternal winter nor permanent summer. They know the sun never ceases to exist, even when invisible. They know the Son of Man is always in the process of manifesting, even when the world seems not to notice. And with this wisdom, they live in peace. They cultivate silence. They guard the fire. They wait with patience. They radiate with humility. They become part of the cycle, not as victims, but as co-creators of the approaching new spiritual dawn. This new dawn will be marked by human beings who have understood the sacred time of the soul. People who do not run, but walk. Who do not shout, but resonate. Who do not compete, but collaborate. Who do not fear the darkness, but know the light that inhabits it. This humanity is being born now, discreetly, in the hearts that have chosen to follow the inner sun. They do not wait for miracles. They are the miracle. They do not proclaim glories. They live the glory. They do not ask for signs. They are the signs. And in this recognition, the Son of Man rises once again, with flaming eyes and a peaceful heart, to guide the earth to the next season of consciousness. In the language of ancient scriptures, mystical tradition, and enlightened masters, the word glory has never been separated from the fire of tribulation. This association is neither symbolic nor moralistic. It points to a cosmic structure, to a profound and unchangeable spiritual truth. There is no true light that has not passed through darkness, no ascension that has not first descended into the abyss of being. The true glory, the one that pulses in the heart of the Son of Man, is not built on the applause of the masses, but on the nights when the soul is stripped of everything it thought it was. Pain, silence, abandonment, emptiness. All these elements are part of the sacred Calvary of consciousness in search of its own reintegration. It is in this painful and sacred process that the luminous presence of the one who transcends the world is forged, not because he rejects it, but because he understands it in its entirety. Tribulation, then, is not punishment. It is refinement. It is the dark womb where light learns to be born from itself. This is the inverted path of ascension, a way the world does not understand, for in it, the ascent begins with descent. The Son of Man, before seated on the throne of glory, passes through all the stations of human suffering. He knows the pain of rejection, the weight of misunderstanding, the desert of isolation. He faces temptations, the ego that wants to regain control, the ghosts of the past that insist on returning. He is betrayed not only by others, but by parts of himself that have not yet surrendered. And yet he continues. Even without certainties, even without guarantees, he remains on the path. And every tear becomes a baptism, every fall an initiation, every renouncement an elevation. It is in this silent alchemy that glory begins to be born, not as a reward, but as the inevitable consequence of those who remained faithful to the truth, even when everything said otherwise. This process does not occur in a single moment, nor in a linear way. It repeats in layers, in spirals, in cycles that test the soul in its deepest hidden depths. Each tribulation brings with it an invitation to deeper surrender, to more radical yielding, to the most absolute trust. The Son of Man does not seek to escape from the world, but to immerse it in the light of consciousness. And for this, he first needs to allow the light to penetrate himself entirely. There can be no hidden shadows, covered wounds, denied memories. Everything needs to be seen, welcomed, transmuted. And this hurts. It hurts because the ego resists, because the personality wants to preserve its comforts, because the old still seduces with promises of security. But the soul knows. It recognizes that true freedom only comes when there is nothing left to lose, just to be. The cross, the central symbol of the drama of the Son of Man, is the supreme image of this inverted journey. It is not an instrument of punishment, but of revelation. It shows the point where the human meets the divine, where pain becomes a portal, where the limit turns into infinity. The crucifixion does not represent defeat, but the death of the illusory self. It is the collapse of the constructed identity, of the sustained image, of the maintained mask. And only after it can there be resurrection, not to return to what it was, but to be born as something completely new. The glory that comes after the cross is not that of one who won an external battle, but of one who has become one with their own essence. It is the glory of complete silence, of pure presence, of light that no longer wavers. It is necessary to understand that every soul who truly wishes to fulfill itself will go through this process, not as divine punishment, but as part of the spiritual architecture of the universe. Ascension requires depth. The true light only sustains itself when it has roots in the dark. That's why the great masters went through deserts, persecutions, abandonments. They were not spared because they were special. They were exposed to the fire because they were ready to burn everything that was not essential. And by doing so, they became pure channels of truth. Glory did not make them arrogant nor distant. It made them humble, simple, deeply human. They knew that the throne is heavy, that the light is demanding, that presence requires loyalty, and for this reason, they did not boast, they simply served. In the journey of the new humanity, this very process is happening now, on a collective scale. The entire planet is going through a time of deep tribulation. Old structures crumble, systems collapse, certainties disappear. The pain is real. The fear is palpable, insecurity is spreading. But behind all of this, something is being revealed. The glory that will come will not be from a savior system, from a lone messianic figure, but from the emergence of thousands, millions of sons of man, silently awakening amidst the chaos. They will have gone through the fire, they will have known the cross, they will have faced their own shadows. And because of this, they will be unshakable. Their light will not be fragile nor dependent on circumstances. It will be like the sun, silent, constant, undeniable. It's at this point that the true revolution takes place, not in the streets, but in hearts, not through confrontations, but transformations. Each human being who decides to face their own tribulation with courage, with truth, with presence, is igniting a point of light in the collective field. They are helping to gestate the new dawn. They are making possible the emergence of a humanity that no longer fears pain, but understands it as a path. The Son of Man, arising in each one, becomes a beacon for many. His glory, far from being a spectacle, becomes comfort, healing, strength for those who are still in the midst of the journey. And so, without fanfare, the new era begins to form. But it's essential to remember, glory does not eliminate tribulation, it merely redefines it. The Son of Man does not deny his humanity, he transcends it by fully living it. He cries, feels fear, despairs, but he does not surrender. He continues, even without seeing. He trusts, even without understanding. He loves, even without being understood. And it's precisely for this reason that his light is so powerful. because it was born from pain, forged in darkness, and therefore it can illuminate without extinguishing. The glory that comes after the tribulation is not an escape, but an embrace. It's not a prize, but a state of being. And this state is accessible to all who accept the call of the soul. The inverted path of ascension is the only real path. All others are illusory shortcuts, empty promises, fantasies of the ego. Only those who descend to the roots of their own being can sustain the light of truth. Only those who pass through the fire can carry the sun in their chest. And this is the deepest beauty of the journey, that no one is excluded. Everyone is called, everyone can respond, everyone can be born again. Glory is not reserved for the perfect but for the true, not for those who have never fallen, but for those who always got up. And in this constant rebirth, the Son of Man keeps revealing himself, until one day the whole world is illuminated not by one, but by a legion of beings who have traversed tribulation and have become the light itself. In the vastness of eternal symbols, few carry the spiritual density and vibrational majesty of the solar crown. Present in legends, engravings, hieroglyphs, and mystical visions, crowns of light have always represented more than visible authority or earthly titles. They symbolize the supreme stage of consciousness, the consecration of spirit over matter, the pure manifestation of divine presence in the fully awakened being. The crowned enlightened one is not the one who rules with an iron scepter or authoritative words, but the one whose existence radiates a force that does not impose, but transforms, that does not dominate, but dissolves the veil of ignorance. The solar crown is the luminous field that surrounds the being who has returned to his inner throne, the one who, having overcome the illusions of the world and conquered himself, now carries the glory of not needing to prove anything further. He reigns not by conquest, but by vibrational merit, by integration, by unification with the source. The image of saints, masters, deities, and avatars with halos or luminous auras is not a religious fantasy or aesthetic artifice. It is an esoteric record of a real energetic state. The light around the head is evidence of the total activation of the crown center, the upper chakra, through which human consciousness unites with the one consciousness. The solar crown, in this context, is not an ornament, but a portal, a point of intersection between time and eternity. The one who manifests it does not do so out of desire, but because the fire of the Spirit has risen with such intensity that it overflows in all directions. The truly enlightened becomes the sun itself, not out of ego, but because of being devoid of ego. He no longer acts out of necessity, does not speak out of vanity, does not live in pursuit. He simply is. His presence is his message. His light is his crown. The solar crown appears in John's visions in the Apocalypse, where he describes a woman clothed in sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. This woman is a symbol of the divine soul, of the Shekinah, of the presence of the universal mother crowned with the 12 celestial powers. The 12 stars represent the totality of transmuted virtues, of integrated astral portals, of sovereignty achieved in silence. The image reveals that enlightenment is not just masculine or active, it is total, integrating the feminine, the receptive, the intuitive. The crowned soul is the one that recognized its stellar origin, that remembered its place in the cosmos, that assumed its spiritual lineage. She no longer waits for approval, for she knows herself. She no longer fears the fall, for she has already fallen and risen. She no longer hesitates to shine, for she knows that her light does not belong to herself, but to the whole that inhabits her. The sacred kings and queens of ancient civilizations knew that the crown was not a symbol of status, but of cosmic responsibility. In Egypt, the pharaoh's crown represented the alignment between celestial and terrestrial forces. In Tibet, the lamas were only enthroned after years of retreat and silence, when they had already died to the world and been reborn to the spirit. In Vedic India, the enlightened rishis did not wear material crowns, but their foreheads shone with the light of realized knowledge. In all these cultures, to be crowned was synonymous with having overcome duality, having dissolved the fragmented self and become a direct channel of the divine. The solar crown, therefore, is not a symbol that is imposed from the outside in, It emerges from the inside out, like a flower that only blooms after the long underground night. Those who embody the solar crown are silent. Their greatness does not shout, does not boast, does not seek applause. They walk among men as equals, but their presence alters the atmosphere. Where they enter, energy reorganizes. Where they touch, healing occurs. Where they look, truth reveals itself. They don't announce themselves, but they are perceived. They do not defend themselves, but they are respected. They do not confront, but they disarm. Their power is subtle, but absolute, because it does not come from force, but from surrender. It does not come from control, but from letting go. It does not sprout from desire, but from emptiness. The solar crown is not a conquest of will, but of alignment, and only those who have died to everything that was illusory can carry it without being consumed by it. The Son of Man, upon reaching this degree of transfiguration, naturally becomes crowned. His inner ascension culminates in this state of complete unity with the Spirit. The glory is now not only perceived from within, it is visible from the outside, as a field of light, as a radiance that touches even the most dormant. He is no longer a seeker. He is a beacon. He is no longer a pilgrim. He is the path. His life becomes a living offering. Every gesture is a sacrament. Every word is a blessing. He carries the crown not as a possession, but as a reflection. He does not say, "I am the king," but his mere presence awakens in others the remembrance that all are heirs to the same throne. And by doing so, he fulfills the supreme purpose of enlightenment, to make his own life a bridge of return for those who still walk in darkness. The solar crown also represents energy sovereignty. The crowned being is no longer driven by external influences, emotional manipulations, or transient opinions. They live from an absolute axis, a still center, a radical loyalty to their own essence. They do not deviate, they do not corrupt, they do not rush. They know that everything is already in motion, that everything obeys the superior intelligence of the Spirit. Their calmness is not indifference, it is confidence. Their gentleness is not weakness, it is contained strength. Their firmness is not rigidity, it is clarity. The solar crown is this state of vibrational stability that transforms the chaos around it without needing to fight against it. It dissolves the darkness simply by existing, like the sun that doesn't need to argue to make the day dawn. In deep spiritual psychology, the crown also represents the activation of the higher mind, symbolic vision, and unitive consciousness. The crowned being no longer sees the world with conditioned eyes, but with the eyes of the Spirit. They perceive the hidden plots, the invisible patterns, the truths behind forms. They understand that everything is interconnected, that nothing is by chance, that each encounter carries a key. This perception does not make them superior, it makes them more compassionate. For by seeing suffering as an expression of forgetfulness, they become an agent of remembrance. By seeing pain as resistance to light, they become a channel of gentleness. By seeing illusion as a phase of awakening, they become a mirror of truth. Their crown shines because their vision is free. But the most impressive thing about the solar crown is that it cannot be given by another. There is no master who can bestow it, no ritual that can grant it, no book that can teach it. It only comes into being when the soul is ready, when the ego no longer dictates the rules, when the mind has quieted and the heart has opened. It is an internal phenomenon, silent, irreversible. And once manifested, it is not lost. It can be denied by the world, ridiculed by the blind, ignored by those who are still asleep, but it remains there, radiating, sustaining, blessing. He who carries it can no longer pretend to be small. He can no longer hide behind excuses. He can no longer live halfway. The solar crown demands wholeness, and this demand is the greatest of all, to live in absolute coherence with the light that one is. The new humanity will be formed by these silently crowned beings. They will not come with promises, but with presence. They will not present themselves as saviors, but as siblings. They will not carry dogmas, but vibrations. They will be the new kings and queens of the earth, not because they will dominate territories, but because they will reign over themselves. Their authority will be spiritual. Their glory will be vibrational. Their leadership will be invisible, yet irresistible. Wherever they are, the the new will arise. Wherever they walk, the old will dissolve. Wherever they love, light will reign. And it will be with them that the Son of Man will manifest his fullness, not in one body, but in many, not in one voice, but in a choir, not on a throne, but in millions of enlightened hearts. What has always been announced as the grand finale, the culmination of all ages, the glorious return of the Son of Man, is, in fact, the beginning of a new cycle of existence. Not as a theatrical manifestation from the heavens, accompanied by angelic armies and thunderous judgments, but as the silent emergence of a new consciousness, so pure, so real, so luminous, that its presence will dissolve centuries of accumulated darkness. This return does not belong to chronological time, nor to the planet's geopolitics. It happens in the eternal instant when the human being fully aligns with his solar essence. The Son of Man, then, does not return from the outside. He emerges from within. He does not come to change the world with decrees, but to inhabit the world with absolute presence. His return is our return, from illusion to truth, from separation to unity, from ignorance to living wisdom. This moment of return is simultaneously collective and intimate. Collective because it involves the vibrational transition of all humanity. Intimate because it occurs in the heart of each awakened being who has traversed their inner deserts and opened up to the totality of being. There are no trumpets in the sky, but there are vibrations echoing in the subtle field of the earth, announcing the approach of a new order. There are no clouds breaking the heavens, but there are veils falling before the eyes that now see. The return of the Son of Man is the landing of the Spirit in matter. It is heaven entering earth through the living temple of each aligned human being. He comes to remind, to reintegrate, to restore the sacred memory of creation. He comes as a unifying consciousness, dissolving both internal and external boundaries, connecting everything to the point of origin, where all is one. This unification is the true fulfillment of ancient prophecies. When talk of a new heaven and a new earth was made, it did not refer to the destruction of the physical planet, but to the elevation of human perception to a level where heaven and earth are no longer opposites, but complementary expressions of the same reality. The new heaven is the awakened, purified, elevated consciousness, while the new earth is the collective body of this consciousness in action. When the Son of Man manifests in fullness, he inaugurates this synthesis. The world ceases to be a stage for exile and becomes a temple. Life ceases to be a field of trials and becomes a field for the expression of light. Everything changes because perception changes. And where there was once separation between the human and the divine, there is now fusion. Where there was distance between creator and creation, there now exists a mirror. The return of the Son of Man is also the activation of humanity's cosmic memory. It is the living remembrance of our solar origin, of the divine lineage, of the eternal nature of being. The story we were taught, of sin, fall, punishment, begins to crumble before the experienced truth. We were never separated from the source. We just forgot. The return is, therefore, an awakening. The light does not come to punish, but to reveal. It does not condemn, but liberates. And when it shines in the deepest corners of consciousness, all that was shadow dissolves without resistance. Shame disappears, fear surrenders, pride dissolves. Because in the light of truth, there is no battle. There is recognition, there is surrender, there is return. The Son of Man is not the judge, but the mirror. He shows us who we truly are, and in seeing this, we are freed. This return also marks the end of artificial hierarchies. There will no longer be intermediaries between the human and the divine, for each being will become their own temple. There will no longer be religions based on fear, as love will become the only law. There will no longer be structures controlling in the name of God, for God will be experienced as an intimate, immediate, undeniable presence. The earth, in this new cycle, will become a fertile field for the full manifestation of the Spirit. The arts will flourish as expressions of the soul. Science will unite with spirituality in the name of the greater good. Education will become a path to self-knowledge. Politics will be compassionate service. The economy will be a flow of fair abundance. everything will be touched by the light of the return. Everything will be reconfigured in the image of the Son of Man realized in each being. And yet, this return will be silent. It will not be a headline in the newspapers, nor viral on social networks. It will happen in the heart of calm mornings, in eyes that open with gratitude, in hands that help without wanting anything in return. It will be in the children who are born with wisdom in their eyes, in the elders who smile in peace, in the anonymous gestures of love. The new earth will not be a revolution, but a revelation. It is already being born, discreetly, where the truth is lived, where the light is chosen, where the ego surrenders to the Spirit. And the Son of Man, with his crown of light, his inner throne, and his silent glory, walks among us, through us, as us. He is the living reminder that we are the incarnation of heaven on earth. And that's why he doesn't need to come, he just needs to be recognized. The unification of the heavens with the earth will be the deepest reconciliation ever experienced by humanity. There will be no more conflict between spirit and matter, between reason and intuition, between science and faith. Everything will be integrated into a single field of loving consciousness, where each aspect of creation will be honored as an expression of the whole. The Son of Man will be the living symbol of this integration, the presence that unites opposites, that harmonizes extremes, that dissolves internal conflicts. He will not solve the world's problems with magic formulas, but will reveal that peace has always been available, just waiting for our maturity to be experienced. He will not bring ready-made answers, but will awaken the wisdom that has always resided within us. His greatest gift will be the collective awakening of wholeness. And when this awakening is complete, the earth will be crowned, not as a planet of trials, but as a school of light, not as a home of conflicts, but as a garden of possibilities. Each human being will be a living portal of the divine. Each glance, a reminder of eternal love. Each breath, a silent chant of communion. Time will cease to be a prison and will become a dance. Space will cease to be distance and will become an embrace. And in this new field of reality, the Son of Man will no longer be announced, he will be lived. His presence will be the atmosphere, his glory, the vibration, his light, the language. And all those who cross this threshold will be redeemed not by imposition, but by choice, not by salvation, but by remembrance. This is the greater mystery of prophecy. It does not speak of the end, but of the beginning. It does not point outward, but inward. It does not divide, but unites. The Son of Man does not come to separate the righteous from the sinners, but to dissolve false identities and reveal the unified essence. He comes to remind us that we are all expressions of the same Son, that we all come from the same light, that we are all returning home. And this return, this unification, this glory, will not be postponed. It begins now, at this very moment, with every human being who chooses to live in truth, with every soul that decides to remember, with every heart that dares to love unconditionally. And so, endlessly, the cycle closes and begins again. The solar throne has been restored. The crown has been placed. The glory has been revealed. The Son of Man has returned, not as one, but as many. Not as an event, but as a frequency. Not as a promise, but as a reality. And now, there is nothing left to do, except to live this light, to be this presence, to express this consciousness, and to allow the heavens, at last, to fully inhabit the earth. Mind Unfettered, now it's up to you. If this message touched your soul, share in the comments. What is your current moment in the journey of the Son of Man? Do you feel like you are awakening, going through the dark night of the soul, or already glimpse the light of the new consciousness? Let's manifest this new reality together. Each of your comments activates the collective field. And it doesn't stop here. Tap on the next video on your screen to continue this journey. The Book of 33 Steps, the Hidden Map, Jesus left for enlightenment. You are about to discover the hidden map left by Jesus, the 33 forgotten steps towards enlightenment that no one ever told you about. We are all one, we are all light, we are all this mind unfettered.